Today I'm going to get you guys filled in on the latest OpenAI Sora news. Lots of new demos have come out showcasing Sora's capabilities, and they're actually starting to work with people outside of OpenAI, which is a good sign, and has allowed me to extrapolate a pretty good timeline for when I think Sora will actually be released. We'll also talk about cost a little bit as well in this video, as I've seen someone really cleverly extrapolate how much it costs OpenAI to generate Sora. I'm almost positive you guys have already seen Sora, but yeah, here's a little taste of the magic and just a reminder of how darn good this video generation model. All of this video is, of course, AI generated, does consistent 3D video generation, photorealistic, it can do simulated worlds like Minecraft, can be implemented in a number of different ways, and today we're going to look at how artists actually have implemented it. And of course, it's not perfect, as you'll see in this little video right here. It doesn't really understand how the glass is supposed to work with physics. Essentially, what OpenAI did here is they took their research Sora model and actually finally brought it out of OpenAI's secret gates and let some very select artists and users get some access to this thing. And this reminds me very much of the DALL-E 2 announcement, where at first it was just a research preview and then they slowly expanded access to some artists and then more and more over time. I suspect we'll see a waitlist at some point pretty soon, to be honest. Anyways, they say they've gained some very valuable feedback from the creative community, helping them improve this product. We got some quotes here. Sora is at its most powerful when you're not replicating the old, but bringing to life new and impossible ideas that we would have otherwise never had the opportunity to see in the first place. So that's from Paul Trillo, a director. Got another quote from Shy Kids here. As great as Sora is at generating things that appear very real, what excites us is the ability to make things that are totally surreal, because of course, makes perfect sense. Brings me right back to the early days of AI image generation, where we wanted to see stuff like, you know, a cat wearing a top hat, surfboarding, and we can actually bring that to life with video now through Sora. So we can continue the story. You know, he parks his surfboard up at the beach, goes and gets a drink on the tropical island, etc. So they've actually provided a few examples of literal short films that are made by these creative people, and this will give us a little bit more of a taste at what Sora is actually capable of. Now, for as good as the generation is, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is still not a complete model, and very much this happened with DALL-E 2, where people got access to it prior, and a lot of the stuff that we saw was curated in a way that was cherry-picked. So I suspect that these video generations are all of the good ones and not any of the bad ones necessarily. So while it still is very, very much capable and we should get excited, just keep that in mind. This is Airhead by Shy Kids.
With any luck, I'll find a way to share them with everyone else.
I like that, man. I like that. A lot of people are saying that this was cringy or something like that. I honestly think that it's pretty good. This just really reminds you how good Sora really can be in its best moments. I don't know if this footage is color graded at all, but if it's not, I'm very impressed. You can still see, though, obviously, it's not exactly perfect. There's some fidelity issues here, and those finer details, like we saw with the image generation technologies, just not perfect at rendering everything just yet. And we can absolutely see this with the bike here. It's a little bit wobbly, but honestly, the motion just makes up for it. Like, let's be honest. You know, the pants aren't exactly perfect, but the arms look okay. Like, it's still a decent model. This is a really nice shot. The hair on the arm looks a little bit strange, but You'd never really be able to tell otherwise, let's be honest. And of course, the whole gimmick here is that he is a yellow balloon. Now, yeah, it's not a consistent face, but it is very difficult for these models to interpret things that aren't really in the training database. So, having a person with a balloon for a head, that can get a little bit difficult, and I'm very impressed by Sora's capabilities to actually be consistent in regards to this exact thing. The balloon definitely changes sizes quite often, but overall, I'm very impressed by how well it was able to pull off this balloon head type person every single time. Some of the shots, some of the more cinematic ones, like this cactus, for example, that's almost indistinguishable from something you could actually film yourself. Really impressive. It's just done a very, very good job at doing this seamless story. This is very much watchable. This content is something that is digestible, and I think that's more of the point here. It can do unique stuff. It can do things that you haven't seen before, and more importantly, I think it actually genuinely is useful. It doesn't give me this icky AI feeling when I watch it. It just is enjoyable. So this one is by Paul Trillo here. Should give us another look. Okay, a lot of people were talking about this one, and I didn't quite understand why at first, but now I get it. It really shows you some of the filmmaking capabilities and some of the really interesting things that you can do when exploring a whole new medium like AI-generated video. It's not like you're limited by the physical world in any way, so this really pushes beyond the boundaries of that. Underwater, and then zooming through all these different areas. I would be very interested to know what prompts he used and the way he prompted this, but it absolutely is fascinating. They very much look like movie scenes, but it's just in this very surreal way of obviously that's not real. Turns into the disco ball. I think that this really demonstrates a little bit more of the ways in which Sora can be pushed and shows us some more of the limitations, because these are some more prompts I think that our community would try. Something similar to this, where it's zooming in, just doing all this crazy stuff. Really, really pushing the model to its limits, and it handled it shockingly well. Again, this was very, very much watchable, which is something that I like to see. Garbage Man here, he was pretty messed up, but it was in this very realistic, surreal way where the movement of the camera is very consistent, and also the cardboard is very consistent as well. And it sort of reacts to the Garbage Man, or whatever this is, in a way that makes sense with the physics we understand. It's all synthetic. It's all made by an AI model, but none of it was done in a computer in a traditional sense. And that's just mind-blowing. This is by Nick Cleverov. The whole point behind this one was more or less that the budget of a certain creative endeavor is no longer a limiting factor necessarily when exploring the various things that you want to explore in the video creation process. So let's see how that's reflected. this just makes me want to get my hands on this model. It really does. It's so interesting. Like, we got this guy tinkering on the watches, right? He's exploring all these different concepts at once, you know, some multi-dimensional watch. It's crazy how realistic the people look, though. Like, it's kind of scary. It reminds me of how terrifying this model can be. You know, I got different contraptions. This is obviously not as stable as, you know, maybe OpenAI would demonstrate to us, but it's still really cool and really interesting and very watchable because of how smooth the camera movements are, I think. This is a really, really incredible shot here. Like, if you saw this in a movie, it'd be like, wow, that's a work of art right there. Just all this contrast and reflectiveness. You know, this guy looked straight up real, I would say. This woman also looked very realistic. And then, you know, scenes like this or shots like this, it's like, okay, that just reminds me of a real movie scene. The way it demonstrated, the cars look really, really good. A little bit of weirdness going on in the background, though, but like you just don't notice it as much, and it's very, very much like pleasing to watch still. And again, this guy looks like creepy realistic. Like, you could show me this, and honestly, I would just think it's real at a first glance. I know. All these examples are going to be cherry-picked, but still, it's showing us some more of these creative limits that you can find in the models. The artists push things in a different direction than the engineers working at OpenAI. Really abstract ideas always seem to come out super cool. Like, these are all just shoes, and in the background you can see shoes, people marching around a specific shoe, showing off that you can do some level of text generation on objects, which is really nice to see. That's important for video. It's good to see that that's a possibility. Crazy mushroom cities in the middle of a forest. These are the kinds of ideas that just get me excited, man. They really do. This is by August Camp, who is an artist and musician. This is more of a music video style. And this just shows off the adaptability of Sora as a model. It can do a lot of different styles, and you can really explore that latent space in some interesting ways. Footage like this looks like this found footage that someone found in an archive somewhere. So many creative endeavors and so many creative ways you can explore experiences that you could bring to other people by utilizing AI models like Sora. It's just the future is going to be absolutely crazy, guys. I mean, AI video is definitely here. It's almost impossible to believe it's true, but this is by creative director Josephine Miller. So we're showing off some glass here, moving in ways that would be very untraditional or being a part of people's bodies. Underwater even. And just very interesting creative concepts that you would never explore. Very, very, very cool. It did a really good job though. Like, this is difficult, you know, wrapping a human body in glass. That's not an easy thing to understand in the right ways, but here it is. This is by Don Allen Stevenson. This was one of the cooler ones. I'll be honest, I'm just gonna let this one play for itself.
Welcome to Beyond Our Reality, a journey through parallel worlds, where we delve into the extraordinary. Episode 1 unveils the giraffe flamingo, a stunning hybrid that roams the savannah with grace and vibrant hues. In Episode 2, we ascend the flying pigs, charming creatures that redefine the skies with their harmonious flight. Episode 3 plunges us into the depths to discover the whalepuss, an elegant blend of whale and octopus ruling the ocean's abyss. Episode 4 introduces us to the eel cat, an aquatic enigma that combines the sleekness of an eel with the curiosity of a cat. Episode 5 presents the bunny armadillo, a delightful mix of bunny charm and armadillo protection, captivating our hearts. Episode 6 features the horsefly, a small yet noble creature that buzzes with a blend of horse-like dignity and fly-like agility. Episode 7 explores the reptilian aru, a creature that leaps across the desert with the vigor of a kangaroo and the resilience of a reptile. Our adventure culminates in Episode 8 with the fox crow, a fusion of fox cunning and crow freedom soaring through the forest's enigma. Join us on this mesmerizing journey through Beyond Our Reality, a journey through parallel worlds, where the marvels of the unknown.
This just reminds me of the concept from the show Rick and Morty, interdimensional cable, where you just flip through endless imaginative realities that don't actually exist. But now, they're much more real for us because of AI technology. This was definitely one of the cooler experiments though, and it definitely pushes the model a little bit farther, I think, than some of the other demos here, because you're trying to combine two very well-known concepts inside of the AI, and it wants to be able to get those correct. So it can be difficult for these models. But it did a pretty good job. Like, some of them, such as the giraffe flamingo, that came out really, really good. The flying pigs looked amazing as well. Like, that is a fantastic generation. Now, the shark octopus, not so much. Didn't really come out that well. So you can see, like, this is an area where it just sort of failed, I would say. The cat eel, surprisingly good, but you can still sort of see his legs in there. So this one was, like, really rock solid, where he's just, like, half armadillo, reptile creature. Looks a little bit mashed up and creepy, but it works. This could just be seen as a VFX demonstration, and I would have believed you. I would have no idea that this was completely AI generated. You can just prompt something and get something that would take hours and hours of VFX work to do. Finally, we have Alex Rebin, who is a sculptor and artist, and apparently is OpenAI's artist-in-residence. Used Sora to develop a 3D sculpture, which is very interesting. Yeah, you could see it's definitely good for these creative visualizations of ideas. You can instantly get something down that represents sort of what you had in your head. Very similar to AI photo generation, but at a much more deep and detailed level, where we can understand the intricacies a little bit more. So again, guys, the path that OpenAI is on right now very much reminds me of DALL-E 2. And it only took a few months for DALL-E to go public and come off of its waitlist. I think it'll take a little bit longer for Sora. Apparently there was kind of this huge concern at OpenAI and for everybody more or less that with this being election season, if Sora were to release before the election, there could be some sort of informational tampering with AI-generated video. I'll be honest, I don't think that would be a possibility because OpenAI is very well known for just safe-locking everything down. Like, you can't generate anything bad at all. That was never really an issue with DALL-E 2, and I think if it was another company, I would be a little bit worried about it, but with OpenAI, I think that they could release it and there wouldn't be any issues on that front. Maybe there would still be some people tricked by AI-generated video, but I don't think it would be detrimental to any individual. I've been wrong before, though, so let me know if that's something you would disagree with. If they decide to do it before the election, I think that it would come out somewhere in September-ish, October-ish. I'm sure OpenAI doesn't really know exactly when it's going to release either. They have some sort of a timeline, but if it's anything like the way DALL-E 2 sort of went, I'd say, maybe around then, a little bit longer than DALL-E 2. Now, if they're going to do it after the election, obviously it's going to be at the end of the year, so that would be, November, December-ish. I wouldn't be surprised if they went that route also because it's just a little bit safer and gives them a lot more room or wiggle room to work with. Now, guys, let's dive into pricing. How much do we think Sora is going to cost? Here on Twitter, Chief AI Officer gives us a nice look into how much Sora generation might actually cost in compute. So these are estimates from Factorial Funds. Large-scale deployment is 720,000 H100s, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. And of course, this isn't accounting for the new Blackwell NVIDIA GPUs, but we'll see how many of those GPUs they can produce in a short amount of time and how they will be distributed. So this training estimate here is 4.2 to 10.5 H100s for 1 month. And inference on a single H100 GPU, it would take 12 minutes to generate a 1-minute video. Again, that could be faster with the new Blackwell GPUs and Blackwell servers, but we're just sort of not looking into those right now because they aren't really deployed and we don't know how many of them OpenAI is going to have. 12 minutes to generate a 1-minute video is quite long and definitely not long enough for the general public, I would say. But, maybe we could start small, 10, 15-second ones, and that'll take a few minutes to generate. I think that's a little bit more on the reasonable side, especially if the video is as good as we've seen so far. So here is the compute comparison. You can see 1,000 text tokens from GPT-4 is notably smaller in terms of how many flops it's going to cost, and 1,000 text tokens is quite a lot. to be honest. That's a lot. Llama 2 is a little bit quicker here, and we can see, some image generation at 512 by 512. But yeah, it's almost double what Llama 2 is at 1,000 text tokens in terms of flops for one generated output. People ask Chief AI Officer, what do you think this is going to cost? And Chief AI Officer here goes, probably a few dollars for a 60-second video, which would be very expensive. I do think it's also going to be very expensive, similar to DALL-E 2 when it was first released. I think it's going to be one of those things that starts out on a very small scale. Not a lot of people can afford it. There's not going to be any kind of a monthly plan at first until they release a Sora 2, let's say. But you will be able to just pay per generation, and there's definitely people that are going to dump thousands of dollars probably into just playing around with Sora. And I honestly don't know if I'm going to be able to help myself from spending a ton of money on Sora when it releases, but it's my job, more or less, so I'll probably do a live stream when Sora releases where we can just try as many generations as we want, and you guys can obviously submit some prompts. I think they'll definitely have a system where it's, a 5-second clip to a minute-long clip. You got your prompt, and the pricing will be based off of how long your clip will take. And of course, it's going to take quite some time to generate the video. But as we saw with NVIDIA Blackwell and stuff like that, it should accelerate pretty far. The bigger GPUs from Blackwell and the cheaper electricity costs definitely will bring the cost of this stuff down by at least half, if not more. By 2025, we could see Sora actually get into more of a reasonable territory. Still, definitely beats going out and trying to do VFX yourself or going to try to get shots yourself. It's a game changer no matter which way you look at it. Definitely excited for Sora. Let's see how this all plays out. Again, I think we will see it this year, but I think it's going to be very much not accessible for the general public in terms of pricing. Expect a waitlist soon, though. I think that'll come in the next few months. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, and goodbye.